Is cloud physical?
Cloud is physical. Cloud has been glorified by a lot of people, but cloud is nothing but a data center. Data centers should be declared at a level of now, say, nuclear installations. Economy is now based on digital infrastructure. See, the whole excitement of AI is there because, one of the promises is that it will take away all the repetitive tasks or, quote unquote secondary tasks. And that's why there are scares about, jobs being lost and all that. But we should look at power very seriously. Power infrastructure has to be strengthened. The lesser fossil fuels used in generation of power, the better.
A very warm welcome, Dr. Hemant Adarkar. To people who don't know Dr. Adarkar, he has been instrumental in framing a lot of government policies around technology. He has been instrumental in banking, architecture, and also he's an industry veteran in terms of technology. He is in a lot of various boards across on the technology committees as well as independent director. Sir, I am thankful to you that you could come down today and spend some time with us, and would love your insights and your takes. And I did love the article which you kind of wrote about for cloud and is cloud physical. So to begin with, I think the very first question I would like to understand and the people would like to hear about is cloud physical?
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. Thanks. It's a pleasure to interact with you, and thanks for calling me. Yes, cloud is physical. It's a misinterpretation. Cloud has been glorified by a lot of people, but for us, the technology community, the cloud is nothing but a data center. A lot of servers, and kept in a special air-conditioned, environment away from the hustle and bustle, dusty environment, and, good connectivity as well as 24/7 power supply. That is what cloud is in principle. It is, but a lot of people misunderstand because the way cloud has been described to the common man, that the entire their applications are hosted on something which is very abstract. It's actually, because people really do not know that the applications are hosted on a physical server or a large computer, and mainly these applications are divided into three basic layers. One is, access layer, the user access layer, which the user interacts with the application, the business logic, which processes all your commands, and then there is a storage of data, which has to be persisted with, what we call in our technical parlance as persistent layer. So these three things lie in a data center. This is what is all about. Now, people talk that, cloud is resilient and all that. It's, people who actually run the data centers, it's business as usual.
Okay. Very interesting, because I think for a lot of us, when we look at cloud, it's like, opening up an app store in a phone, downloading an app, installing it, and then kind of either using it, consuming it, either for data transfers or something. And the very instance that it says this app, it is cloud ready or your data is in cloud, we are happy. I think we all know our data is safe somewhere in the cloud. But now, as I understand from you, what you are saying is that the cloud is nothing but, when I look at what's under the hood, the nut and bolts are the servers, the data centers, the electricity around this, I think. And for the technology people who run these data centers, when you spoke of resilience, very interesting. It's for them, it is business as usual. But for us, I think if the app works, I think we are good with that. But if it doesn't work, the cloud is broken. I think interesting. But then what happens when cloud really breaks? So what does that mean when we say cloud is not there, shut down, or it's not working? So what does it happen?
So see, cloud can break down from variety of ways. One is, of course, the standard thing, which is there's a power outage. Or till now we have been thinking that cloud has to be, a data center has to be inside in a proper seismic sort of resistance zone. So it's a sort of can handle a bit of earthquakes.
So seismic here would be basically, for the audience, would be that I think the structure in which the entire Indian continent or the India is divided into. I think it is 2 or 3 seismic zones.
Correct. So in fact, if you clearly see, a very interesting thing is that we have large number of banks. Being a financial capital, Mumbai has large number of data centers. Right, and the other, the disaster recovery, or if something happens to this infrastructure, the backup is either in South India, in Hyderabad, Chennai, or in Delhi, Noida, etc. So you can always fall back on the that your applications keep running from the backup place, backup data centers.
So in case if one seismic zone kind of gets disrupted if at all. That's the very, I think, extreme case. Right? But at least you have a second or the third seismic zone in India. So we are lucky in that case, right?
In that sense,
India
we are
is
lucky.
Kind of very lucky to have 3 seismic zones, which is there.
So power, this one, and of course, I forgot to mention when you asked me this question about cloud. Another precaution which people who run cloud take is, especially in the tropical. Since this is for Indian audience, we also have rodent repellent systems. There are mice which can cut through cables. Yeah, so we have electric noise created so that rodents stay away from all these infrastructures.
So which means even clouds are infected with pesticides.
You can say rodent, not pesticide.
Yeah, but let me take that back. Rodents there. So, but when we talk about the apps, the data, and the kind of digital services which we consume now, we have a lot of social media apps which are there. We consume a lot of streaming platforms. I think every time we open up a mobile phone or a computer, we are always connected to the net, and by means of app, we are connected to the cloud. So when we do not have, I think one part you mentioned about cloud being not accessible due to power outages, or maybe due to internet being not available, and rodents in case if they have there. But for people out there, we are really dependent on apps nowadays. Heavily dependent on apps, the internet. But do we see cloud, and as we talked about cloud being a data center, and we've been hearing about India is booming in data center market. Right? A lot of data centers coming up every day, or I think servers coming up every day in data centers and being scaled up. So does that mean even cloud is scaling up for India?
Yeah, you can say that cloud is scaling. So taking away the abstraction, okay, scaling means it's, adding more servers, adding, more memory, adding more, pipes for internet, adding more power, right? So it also depends on the physical infrastructure. Power, of course, does not come from this one. You need to generate it, right? And whether you generate it through fossil fuels or through renewable energy, So that's a very different story altogether. Plus, the bandwidth, various applications require, right? I mean, if you are a bigger bank, you require a higher bandwidth. If you are a small outfit doing e-commerce, you require smaller outfit. So all these aspects come into the picture. So, I mean, the intention of saying this is, again, reiterating that cloud is a physical, entity.
It's very commonly coming out from your conversation that we take cloud as a very simple abstract layer, but as we understand from you, I think cloud is physical. It is a data center which hosts a lot of number of servers on which a lot of applications run, which kind of creates that abstraction layer for us as users to understand this is the cloud which is there. But when we again come back to this piece, when we say cloud is digital or cloud is physical, one thing also matters is that where is my cloud? So I think one question if I got from your conversation was, you said it is located somewhere. It is in Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. So which means it is housed in a physical building.
Correct.
Interesting. So maybe if we are passing by some premises, we might say, hey, look, that's a building where our data lies.
Correct. Absolutely. So it lies in a physical, of course, a very fortified building. And so, of course, if you have a global service provider, your data can lie anywhere in the world.
So as a user, when I say my data is with cloud, so wherever the cloud is been established as a physical premise, wherever they are across India or across globe, if maybe, so that's where my data lies.
Correct.
As we realize, the cloud is not as that simple as we just plug. While we do have the access to internet, which is very readily available there, we do have access to cloud services which are readily available there. But finally, there is huge set of infrastructure which is running behind, and that makes sure the cloud is available.
Correct. So this is the the beauty of cloud is to so that the end user is oblivious to all this bits and bytes level operations, and the ACs and the fire compliant systems and rodent repellent systems, etc.
Wow. So it's for us, it's like just click of a button and we get access to our services. You open up Netflix, I think it starts streaming. You open up Amazon, you start e-commerce. You open up a banking app, we start banking. I think you open up any search B2B app or even a travel app, we start working with it. But at the end, it is the cloud. The cloud is physical. But then that's a twist, right? I think we have been seeing lately a lot of wars across geographies, and coming to the latest war which is happening in the Gulf region, right? And I think in a very interesting article which you kind of wrote about it, and for the audiences, yes, those articles also linked up in the same podcast there. But then you spoke about when a war hits a cloud. It's a very powerful thought. In India, we have not seen that happening. But yes, now I think we have the Gulf region entirely. The entire AWS infrastructure is where, got physical attacks, got damages, and they have huge downtimes there. With the same thought, when war hits the cloud, the article, really is so impactful that I've been thinking, what would that be? What is that if at all it happens in India? But yes, I leave it to you, and I would love to understand from your side of you, your lens as to, when war hits the cloud.
Yeah, in fact, one is, while sort of choosing a space or designing a, cloud, and by now, cloud equal to data center. So, design as well as the choice of location, then was, the considerations were, whether sufficient internet is, what we call in our parlance pipes, internet pipes, and there is availability of power, right? It is, physically, away from the hustle bustle of cities, right? So these are typically considerations. One, on the lighter side, one, MD of an organization asked me that how good is the choice of their data center from a security perspective. So I said, to break into it, you need to be James Bond, right?
Okay.
So, but, and then of course there was always think of, perimeter security from a cyber security perspective, right? That people, the hackers trying to get in, or there is a various types of cyber attacks. Now, this war has, suddenly woken us up to a new risk. And that is that, a war, can actually destroy this physical infrastructure. Okay, a missile or a bomb or, a drone can actually disrupt your services. See, unfortunately, what has happened, and fortunately also, is that last 20 years, every business has become a software business.
Yes.
And, now there's this famous article by Nicholas Carr in Harvard Business Review in 2003. Does IT matter? Now IT is business, right? And therefore, if you disrupt somebody's IT infrastructure, if you don't allow people to access their website, their applications, their mobile app especially now, there is no way we can, do business with that party. So one of the ways is, and that's what you can clearly see that, now the geopolitical risk has to be taken into account while, designing a data center.
Well, but then when you raise such a powerful question of when a war hits a cloud, for an ordinary citizen, I think, or maybe for businesses, let's say, I think that's a very big question for them to consider geopolitical risk now when they are setting up a data center. But then in that question, we could add it whether region would also be a point of a matter of discussion now, while we still are in India, but then still would a region matter when we discuss data centers?
Yeah. So, of course, there is this Data Privacy Act, and the Data Privacy Acts which are all over the world now. They're coming up in different forms or the other. And one of the common elements is data localization. So data localization and, keeping data centers, in different regions of the world. Okay. Once upon a time, of course, various global companies could say that, they didn't bother. Their data center was at XYZ, typically at Singapore, Europe, or, mainland US. But now many countries, want to enforce the data localization, right? I mean, even cloud providers tell you that, no, your things, your applications will be hosted in, say, Bandra. Literally, I have seen a cloud provider telling me this, that, it's not, it will not, there will not be, your data will not be stored abroad somewhere, but it will be stored in Mumbai.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the whole point is that now having a backup center somewhere, in a different country, right? That is also, government will have to now think about the governments. I mean, not just our government, but the governments, because data localization is, a very common and a strong element.
I was just wondering, because when I read your article, I think one thing which did came up to me was, and I spoke to a lot of our colleagues there out in that region there, when these incidents happen and the attacks happen and the physical attacks happen, not a cyber attack but a physical attack which happened and destroyed, the impact was wide open and we could see that also. It disrupted a lot of services there. Local apps were also disrupted because, as we said, it's a cloud. But from a region perspective, there was efficiency which did happen there. A challenge of efficiency did happen. Here, if we talk of the data residency or localization to be there in that X region, But now when we see something like this happening, like a war which kind of did a physical attack on that premises, uh, it is a challenging aspect that why wouldn't anybody who has thought about a DPDP act like uh, the entire legislature or any other countries think about this, that in case if data centers get attacked? But there's nothing in such, I don't see any provisions or something as a risk there even mentioned in these acts.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this should, not that India would not get attacked, I hope we should not get attacked, but the kind of unprecedented times which we are living now, you can see an attack can happen to anyone here in this globe. Not just there, but then I'm not sure what could happen.
See,
later.
I mean,
but this would be a risk, right? Somebody should have thought about it.
yeah, Rohan, nobody has. I mean, there are risks which get discovered as what there's a famous English saying, right? That you live and you learn.
Live and learn. Yes.
Yeah. So, nobody had thought that physical infrastructure can be actually attacked, right? And as I said, that every business is software
Now
business.
software business, yes.
Correct. So unless it is easy for me, the act of attacking your business is attacking your IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. So GDPR or DPDP Act few years back never thought about all this, but it will so they will have to make those corrections, and allow a bit of that a copy of data is sort of stored in a different region. I mean, see, this is all theoretically known. What we say, the principles of disaster recovery, building outage, city outage, country outage, etc., etc.
That's in theory.
Yeah, but nobody has, people have been trained, people have been certified on this DR and, continuous business planning and all that. But nobody has actually gone to the extent of, what will happen if power fails. Okay, I can't access my mobile phone. Right? So corporates need to, this one, right? I mean, how much, say, a bank will be worried that how much balance Rohan has in his account. He says, I want to withdraw money. And there's no power. So he lands up at the branch.
Right. That's
people have to think about all this. We have to find alternatives for it. I mean, it's difficult, but we have to eventually find alternatives.
So then one point which is coming out very strongly in this is that now then this digital infrastructures like data centers and all other processing centers then needs to be declared as a strategic asset.
Correct.
Because until we don't declare it as a strategic asset, I'm not sure that how would the policies be framed there.
Yeah, I mean, it's data centers should be declared at the level of now, say, nuclear installations. Or, critical infrastructure, there is already, Indian government has already started critical infrastructure. It has sort of certain banks, certain stock exchanges and all that are part of it. But, the whole economy is now based on digital infrastructure.
So you are saying make this a strategic asset, go beyond critical, treat it as you're treating it as a nuclear facility with all these sets of physical protections and everything.
Yeah, that's what I feel. But I mean, as one of my colleagues mentioned that, this whole business of hosting applications is going to be very, very expensive soon.
So that's the message. Is that the message which the Gulf region is giving to us?
Yeah, that's the message.
To the entire world out there?
Yeah.
Well, that's what one of the messages also in the article, which means that if the hosting applications become expensive, would that expense be then burdened onto users?
I mean, some of it will be passed on.
So as the message was loud and clear, which you said, what happened in Gulf, which means is that the hosting of applications, hosting of anything is going to be expensive there. But then that expenses would be passed on to the end consumers, because I think if you look at the entire cycle of the markets, the GDP, and the way we need to kind of structure this, the Indian economy finally talks about, we are increasing, our GDP is growing. But then if such incidents do happen, or if even hosting of app kind of becomes so expensive, I think even startups would think double. Do we really do a startup or no?
No, see this, we're already seeing some signs, right? The hardware cost itself has increased in last few months, thanks to all these geopolitical tensions.
Oh.
Hardware costs, the memory costs have gone up by, memory cost has gone up by, several times. And hardware cost overall has, gone up around, I hear a term, number in the market, 37%.
37%?
Yes. Yeah, also, I mean, whether people have inventory for hardware. And, recently, I'll not take the name of the organization, but we had hardware glitches, even the spare hardware failed. So, these are very critical organizations. So,
So then are we lacking somewhere in the policies or the standards of ISO? As you said, the live and learn, it needs to be revised once again with the facts which happened in the Gulf region, and also the wars with Ukraine and Russia. I think we'll have to revisit everything.
We'll have to revisit many things. I mean, we'll have to revisit the way we do business, the way we, design IT infrastructure.
So it's not just a governance or IT problem. It's going to be a business problem, which is kind of going to lead to the economic challenges.
Correct.
But here, I think in this entire space, I think one thing which you said about cloud being equal to data centers and the geopolitical risk which we spoke about. But then there's this one hidden vulnerability which we just touched upon, and it is the power outage.
Correct.
While we talk about, I understand that a data center will have 1, 2, or 3 sources of power, so that it kind of sustains, and even if one fails, the other takes over. If the second fails, the third takes over. I'm not sure how many number of powers do they get.
Yeah. So one is that they have 2 to 3 sources of power, but in addition they have for the critical servers, they also have what is called as uninterrupted power systems, UPS, what we call. And if that also, that has also, of course, batteries. So they get charged and they get discharged after a while. But then there are typically diesel generators.
Okay.
Right? So we have seen even diesel generators have run out.
Because of the diesel.
Yeah, I mean, so it's, till the power is revived, it's these are all temporary solutions, right? So we need an uninterrupted this one, and with we'll of course talk about it, but the newer kind of applications like AI, they are going to be more power hungry, right? And therefore we, in fact, I had written another article saying that we should we have regional applications of AI, which should use small language models, which will use less power rather than the larger language model.
Very interesting thought there. So just for the audiences, I think we'd like to just take this a small piece there is power is crucial for all items which are electronics, and I think in a data center we have servers, we have all that sets of units which are anyways electronics there, and it requires power for the compute, the storage, I think, to process. But as you said, that we'll have 1, 2, 3 sources of power. Even if it fails, we kind of go to the next source, which is the UPS. That's an uninterrupted power source. But then that again is a technology where it stores power in batteries. Which will run, and any battery, as we charge our cards or our mobile phones, it runs out of the power typically in whatever strength of the battery would be, maybe 2 days, 3 hours, whichever.
Finite time.
Not infinite there. And I think post that, even if the UPS goes, the third source which would be there is a diesel generator, which is I think the standard source for giving us the backup power. But then yes, I think diesel generators would also have their limitations. Understand if the diesel runs out, or like the equation where we see now gas not being available, and the kind of changes being discussed in parliament about, let's get ready for the way we had COVID times. Let's prep ourselves to be there. So the digital life, the entire digital infrastructure, I think apart from the physical security aspect, which we definitely have now to be taken up, but if you have no power, there is no cloud, no AI, nothing just
Correct.
works. It's Stone Age.
Correct. Absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, we don't want to sound too pessimistic, but these are some of the realities which this Gulf events have woken us up.
Woke up, yeah.
Woken
And
up
I think
us.
this is interesting which you said. Instead of having a large language model, which is in AI, we talk all about this, have regional small language models.
Correct.
I think less
They do.
power.
I mean, small language models basically work for specific purpose.
Right. So there's limited power, limited context, limited processing, so that you optimize it.
Correct. And try to run it on a commodity hardware rather than very specialized hardware required.
But then if there is no power, I think what we're discussing about, which means this again is a national crisis.
Power is important, and the faster we get into renewable energy, I mean, see this whole thing of fossil fuels being run out, and also they creating serious carbon footprint. So we should look at we are already looking at, but much more seriously on alternate sources of power.
For a layman, I think for us as citizens who kind of look at and use these services, we always want it on a click of a button. But I think with these facts which we were discussing now about the power outage or increase of physical attack, if this kind of risks have to be taken care of, which is currently not there, as I understand from our discussion, that we have not thought about it, what could happen. And that's a new learning which has to be incorporated in all sorts of standards or new acts or something which is there. We as a user do not think about it. Practically we just living a life, living the life of the apps, what they give us, and that's about it. It's only and only when something breaks, as a normal citizen, we get alerted about it. We panic about it. But then there's nothing else what the citizen can do. So where does when this cloud is announced that it is the resilience which makes the cloud the number one product for the industry, I think where does that go? I just want to have your lens to it.
No, so the whole point is that yes, the end user was never sort of told of these realities, right? I mean, there's always, I mean, let's not talk about, say, the social media or, email apps, but something which today we take for granted, like a core banking application. Without a data center, it doesn't exist, right? I mean, before this, just for historical sake, there used to be branch automation, branches used to be there.
Yes.
But then, last 20 years, we are so used to internet banking, so used to mobile banking, So without a central server and a data center and a cloud, this is impossible, right? So if you want centralized computing, of course, now there are architects who are talking about take the computing to the edges, but, easier said than done. Right? Okay, so that's a hope, but see, that's a very technical solution. Right? Yeah. So, but, it's still at a very, very, this one. Immediately people have reacted saying that, no, why not take intelligence? I mean, this is sort of, we had from the, last 1970 onwards, we had this phases, right? We had this quote unquote client server and then the web.
Yes. I think technology
go
had
back,
its phases.
So, even mobile apps, right? It's actually a client server kind of this one. Your application, most of your application is sitting in the mobile phone, right? Because now there is enough computing power in the mobile phone. So similarly, can we bring something to the, to your desktop or, to an office computer, etc., etc. But that is a, long shot. The whole point is that without, a centralized computer, we are used to a centralized computer, the whole concept of a portal.
Right. But then when we talk of apps, I think nowadays, not nowadays, I think the what's happening now is everywhere we go, discuss to meetings, anyone, we talk of AI. Even a cup of tea with some friends and colleagues, the topic of AI just comes up. And the dependency of AI, as we kind of understood, where cloud equals to data center equals to a lot of compute, and AI requires a lot of compute. So I understand that everyone's excited about AI, but AI requires huge compute, huge physical infrastructure, and with this set of things happening in the region, where do you see the adoption of AI would kind of go for India?
Yeah. See, the whole excitement of AI is there because, one of the promises is that it will take away all the repetitive tasks or, quote unquote secondary research. And that's why there are scares about, jobs being lost and all that.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm sort of more worried that it requires sort of, if you want to run AI in a very sophisticated manner, it requires very sophisticated technical infrastructure. It's not commodity hardware. It's a very specialized hardware, which requires very, which is sort of very power hungry.
Which means more
Yeah,
more power.
I mean, we used to joke that if this CPU is not provided air conditioning, then you can fry an egg on it. It's something similar.
Oh, it's
Okay.
crazy.
So the whole point is that these are very power hungry devices.
Okay.
Right? And especially when people are talking about zero carbon footprint and AI, I think they're oxymoron. Right? So on one side we have so the faster that we move to non-conventional sources of power, the better. Right? The fossil fuels are actually going to are sort of going to be pernicious to this AI revolution.
So which means I think we are too much talking about AI and their models, rather than we are kind of less talking about or building the power side of these pieces.
Especially only people are talking about language models. AI is much bigger
than
subject,
yes.
right? I mean,
right.
AI also takes care of robotics. AI takes care of very specialized solutions. Again, various places it can really do help. Like, for example, many banks have to run, or a financial services organization has to run serious, daily IT operations, beginning of day, end of day, and all that. They can be really automated, properly automated. Many things are automated in many industries, right? And then, of course, AI is used for clinical trials,
yes,
and all that.
But various industries.
This is nothing to do with language models. We are only interested in language
that's what
models.
we've been almost every
right. That is what the common man is. So, but these large language models require, as I said, special hardware, special and therefore more power.
So for this special hardware, do you have separate special data centers built up?
No, I mean, see, data center is the same, right? Only thing is you need more power.
More power, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and
so
and specialized hardware.
People, the same people said a few years back, we now will create blockchain data centers. Yes. Now they'll just paint on top of that blockchain and said AI data center.
Yes. So I was wondering, I think earlier a few years back, I think we used to say blockchain.
So see, the whole point is that AI is also software, which runs on a hardware, but it's a learning software.
Yes.
Right. So it learns from the data that you provide. So, there's nothing that it sort of, like a human mind, it cannot create anything. What exists in the World Wide Web, it sort of, presents it to you very nicely.
So now, as you said, we had this blockchain and we painted it with saying AI data centers. So what I am understanding is that, hey, look, I have my compute, I have my physical infrastructure, I have my pipes, that's the internet, and I have my power. Blockchain came in, didn't happen. Okay, now AI is coming. It's a new trend in the market. While I have my all these four sets of basic necessities there, let me put AI on top of this. But while we are putting AI on top of it, and as you said that it requires a different set of hardware, the standard power requirement of a data center may be, let's say, 1, that's from a numeric sense, but for an AI data center, it might be from a scale of 1 to 5, where you would see that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't sort of quantify different,
yes,
but it will be few times higher.
At least 3
to, yeah.
Wow, it's kind of a huge power requirement which comes up then. So it again leads back to the same problem, that are we having enough power? Are we having enough securities?
Correct.
Whether it's geopolitical tensions would kind of take away the story which India is talking about,
Correct, yeah.
The next AI revolution, and build in India, make in India. Let's make India the India ka AI. I think that's what the promotion which happened. So are we really going to grow? What's your take? How do you see that? What's your industry friends and colleagues talking about it?
See, one thing is about, there is somewhat resistance to do any deep tech work in this country. That's very unfortunate. I mean, but I think that's the way we are built. But of course, there would be a large number of people who would be involved in developing applications on top of AI and, infrastructure and all that. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to tide over many things, but, there are challenges. That's what I feel.
So what do you see the biggest challenge or the blind spot in India becoming an AI superpower?
Yeah, power.
That's the...
Yeah, according to me, power. And of course, see, everything else you can get, trained manpower, you can train people. And we have enough number of intelligent people in our country, fortunately, that, but it's going to be power, power, because AI in its present form, it's very power hungry.
Wow, interesting. So for the betterment of the citizens or the consumers, and if we kind of start using AI systems, again, it's a transformation from the traditional business models to AI-driven business model. But I think at the end, we are choked up with the infrastructure, we are choked up with the power, and again the pipes, as we say. But I think we spoke of AI, but when you talk of geopolitics, you talk of the dependency on the cloud which we have, and that's kind of turning out to become a very strategic risk, which now we have to act upon. I think the DPDP Act has to talk about it, a number of other acts. If we speak of India, I have to kind of talk about it. But then when we have these global conflicts, what would that pointers from your side be, when we look at resilience for data centers? So if you could kind of give some pointers where businesses or banks could understand about what could they think about, where should they start when such kind of impact could happen to them?
Yeah, I mean, see, this, first of all, most businesses should simulate, that various things going wrong, right? I mean, this is like we see very nice vehicles going around, disaster recovery, this and disaster management and all that. But, these are tick boxes, because some regulator has said that you must have disaster management team and protocol and all that. But people really need to put their brains behind this, that, suppose tomorrow my mobile app is not available. So how do I serve my customers? Tomorrow my servers are broken down. So how do I serve still I should be able to serve my end customer, right? So all businesses have to actually simulate this, disaster scenarios very seriously. They've been just talking about it, as I said, that people have been certified on CBCP and DR and all that. But they should actually,
Talk
from
about this.
senior management to
The
even
people
in
who
their
execute.
branches,
Yes.
they should simulate this disaster.
So
scenarios.
isn't this like we would say, all eggs in one basket? So, it just came to my mind there. If you have some strategic servers which have your AI systems or something which is so critical, and all of them are at one location, I think we are bound. And if that has a challenge of power as a risk, or a geopolitical risk, which can be a war or something, or if even if it's not war, but while we do not have drones here which have flown down to data centers, but if somebody starts that, let's say somebody goes to a nearby Amazon or any data center here and flies a drone and hits it,
Correct.
just for any reason, it's not maybe for a perspective of from a war perspective, but hey, look, just did that. Are we having enough protections there? I think we have not thought about it.
Yeah, so that's, as I said, that businesses, governments, they have to sort of simulate these disaster scenarios.
So which means if our eggs in one basket, it becomes super high risk.
Yeah, correct. So that is what, one of the thing is, take computing to edges, right? This is a
Take computing to edges.
Yeah. But still, I know I still can't say that it's a solution, right? See, like for example, ransomware for last 2-3 years was a very major thing, and still sort of this one. But now people have found solutions that, you have a secure copy of data.
Yes.
Right? There are solutions available and which has been accepted and all that. So ransomware risk has been reduced considerably. But so similarly, human mind will find
ways. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm positive that we'll find a solution to all this.
Wow. But then when we talk about data localization, right, and we say we have to be physically resilient also, because we have to maintain the data centers so that we have, as you understand, we should have one primary site and maybe a secondary site or a backup site which is there. But then if both these sites kind of get hit for an next risk which is there, where do we stand? I think it's a blackout, or are we having any other solutions to it?
Yeah, so, we'll have to find, because, any amount of sites can be hit by this, in a geopolitical tension. So, how do you place it, how do you place your data and how do you place your servers will be a, very, very tactical consideration.
Okay, so even that would be a tactical strategy to be evolved, while we just want to, whether we house all of our servers at one location or kind of have it mixed and matched with distributed across there. Oh, it's interesting. So, but I'm
here, see, some people are already sort of, for a different reason, they locate their servers in this one. It's because proximity to users, right? Netflix server, for example, for India would be, close by.
Very close by, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So something similar, right? Rather than, I typically controlling a Netflix server in US and sending me this one, rather than, so there are organizations which work on this, that, how do you strategize placing your servers and all that. But that is from latency perspective. This is
nothing to do with the risks of war or thing. But then now in India and in the banks in India, and I think the data centers which are there in India, I think we would need to get into a little more deeper discussion to have these challenges in case, as you said, simulated, and then if arises, what needs to be done. So has any work started, or has some of
people have been now, last few weeks, people have been talking about it in, at very senior levels in the organizations.
This brings to me a next question there, cloud data centers, the residency of it, the disruption in terms of physical security piece, which is there. It's very interesting. I think instead of cyber security, we should now think of physical security as very critical or a nuclear level kind of a threat which could probably happen to our data centers there. But you have worked deeply in banking and the critical financial systems which is there. How do you want these institutions to think differently about infrastructure and the risk now?
Yeah. So, see, one, as I told you, that, core banking, made everything. I mean, there are a lot of things which core banking, a centralized server, everybody's accounts, everybody's data lies in one place, right? And, some of the bigger PSU banks, which are tens of thousands of branches, what happens in 𝗵𝘁𝘁𝗃𝗿. Before core banking, their reconciliation happened a month later and all that, right?
Yes.
The data reaching Mumbai was, so just stroke of a key, now people can, you can after 31st March, within few hours, you can give a balance sheet.
Yes.
That is the power of a centralization, right? But, or, mutual funds, right? The transactions that happen, every evening they are ready with their balance sheet. But now, this centralizing anything is sort of has a geopolitical risk, right? So can we keep the copies of database? This is, at various locations. So it's like, if the old client server model was actually brilliant in this case, right? That if one branch is hit, at least that particular branch, other branches are not hit.
Correct.
They continue their
Continuity
things.
is there, yes.
Right. So see this, when people are saying, the architects are saying that take the computing to edges, there are advantages, but there is no organization wide view. If you want to take, you'll have to centralize it.
So when a citizen opens a banking app, I think just for a layman, what are the hidden layers when the entire experience for them is involved, basically?
So see, as I said in the beginning, that the data is supreme, right? Because if you sort of switch off all the systems, if like even there's no power outage, the moment you switch on the power, what remains is data, your balance, right? The application is to be sort of relaunched and all that, and it will run, but your data is secure, right? So even if I switch off your system, so that's why we call it persistent layer. Yeah. So data. So typically your balance, right? That even if I switch off a banking system, your balance should be sacrosanct. It should be kept. So balance. So database, application, and then your mobile app or your browser is talking to this banking application.
Oh, okay. So I think from a citizen perspective, it's very common that when we use when we use banking applications, right? The first thing what we want is the balance to be maintained there. I think whatever happens to the bank, whatever goes wrong, I think we have this in olden days. I think even have now the passbooks.
Correct. Yeah.
We kind of keep it up to date.
Electronic passbooks.
Yeah, electronic ones. But I know for sure a lot of senior citizens still have to carry the physical passbooks and kind of take that thing as an updated number and say, hey, look, this is what my last balance is. That's data. That's something which has to be persisted, is what you're saying. Wow. So even if that's backed up, and if, okay, just an hypothetical scenario there. If a data is backed up in some very different location, but still your data centers are out, maybe due to power or due to maybe certain war, but with the data, can it still be rolled back?
So can, see, the whole point is that can somebody who is sort of in front of the customer, right? Let's say that, all this one, all customer is actually come down to the branch, and there's somebody who shows him that your balance exists, and this is your balance, right? So you have to give him that access.
Okay, that's the confidence.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter that whether he can access it or not, but I can show it on a tablet or a mobile phone
or
that this is his balance.
Yeah. So as a banker
Yeah.
to a customer, if that
Correct.
assurance is there to the customer,
Or, I mean, same thing. Your shares existed. These are your shares in the depository. This is, they are untouched. That is the assurance which is ultimate. So today you may not be able to transact, but you're not lost money or you lost shares.
Yeah, at least the facility to transact or to do something, or UPI being not available and other things would not be there. But yes, the assurance of that the money is still lies there, right? Great, wow, interesting. That I think would definitely give a relief to a lot of audiences out there. But then when such things are happening, I think the Gulf region, the war is happening, and they're hitting the cloud infrastructure there. In India, do you see the leadership, the top management, talking about it? And because I believe, or we always see that when we read these news and we read the articles, that there is not much happening at the top management in terms of technology, but then how would they take this? Do we see regulators chipping in now? And what would your take be as a policy change maker?
See, one is, of course, the regulators will come in. They will definitely step in. But it is the duty of the respective chief information officer or chief technology officer, as the case may be, to sensitize the management and the board, about this. These are the added risks. Also, the risk department, the chief risk officer also should be sort of aware of this new risks which are coming, right? Because typically in financial services organizations, they only look at financial and credit risk, reputational risk, and all that, and they leave the cyber risk, technology risks. They're not. They sort of doesn't go under their skin.
Oh,
right. It's there. I mean, they give the scores and all that. That, but this whole point is that risk departments need to be sensitized to this.
Right. Then do you see there's a lot of requirement for awareness to be done here at this space? Because when DPDP was launched, I think now it is anyways enacted, but still we require a lot of awareness for DPDP also. But with this set of...
So, I mean, there is, there has to be tabletop experiment with, the board. How does the board... See, board has been... at least there are some attempts to sensitize the board for cyber risk.
Okay,
sensitize the board for technology risks. But similarly, that, what are the risks for their data centers? What are the risks for, even what the board needs to understand what is on-prem and what is cloud and what is this.
Right.
So, or even using a professional data center, right? That many organizations still in financial sector still don't have. They still own, they do all the hard work for, of their own data centers. So, many of those things can be professionally handled. And those data centers are coming up. I'm not talking about AI data centers, but the normal
data centers. Right. But then when we look at these data centers which are run by, let's say, the organization themselves, maybe a bank or a financial institute who run their own data centers, and we compare that with a professionally run or engaged services of a data center where they do it. These are two different paths, which is to do with a long-term strategy for that particular institute. And I'm sure, I think, while they talk about credit risk, operational risk, market risk, brand risk, but technology risk still would be different for us, for them running their own data center and running vis-a-vis a data center which is outsourced or given to someone who can execute it. Because in both of the scenarios, I think that overlapping risk which you mentioned, power, disruption of physical,
that is an overlapping risk.
I think this still lies there, right? For this side also, if they and this side also. So then, where does government come in? or do they even not come in?
Government comes in, one is, of course, as we discussed about data localization. Right? That intervention they can do. But other things would be, treating every data center like a nuclear facility would be a bit too much. That,
Right.
I am a startup and please treat my data center like atomic energy commission. No. I provide some simple, this one, a grocery app, which asks me, or, I'm a food delivery app. Right? Should I be given that status? No. So government can grade things, right? It has already started these things of what is critical infrastructure in the country.
Okay. But then can it also, just a thought, as you mentioned so many points to me, I'm thinking very loud there. Can government or policymakers think about having a government cloud where government provides cloud services for maybe banks, let's say?
So that has already started. That is something RBI has started called IFTAS, Indian Financial Technology Application Services or Infrastructure Services. So in fact, even engineers talk about private cloud. I don't believe it. I believe in community clouds. So, banking is one area, or, brokers can put, say we can do something for them. Well, I feel lesser the government intervention, the better. But RBI has started this.
They have started that. Maybe they designate some areas across India, saying this is...
See, many private banks, what they did was they put up their infrastructure in professional data centers. Okay, and there's a in-between model which they have that, it's not cloud, but they got space and they have their own hardware sitting in professional data center. Many organizations do this.
So that's an in-between
way
sandwiched model
thing.
which they have
correct,
brought in.
And that turns out to be better because, the other things from, as I said, from rodent repellent to,
Yes.
precision ACs to carbon dioxide to power management.
Pipe,
It's all done.
Everything is done by them.
Yeah. You only take care of your this one. And you have a cage. You close. You have a CCTV camera which you can monitor from your office. If somebody not sort of physically tampering with.
That's kind of assurance which they have given basically. They have it.
So that I think is a best solution because see, cloud. What happens is that many times people use very cloud native sort of services. And then it's very difficult for them to shift from one cloud to another, right? A cloud provider.
Right.
So it is better that you don't get along or you think that there are excessive rates, then you just pick up your hardware and keep it in another data center.
Yes, that is a task, but yes, that's the very interesting solution which could come in.
And now slowly a lot of people are moving to this middle thing instead of going to a direct cloud provider. The middle solution which I told you.
Yes, that's also very interesting.
Yeah.
So I think governments could come in, but I think it would not be good for businesses. But at least when it comes towards protecting of these infrastructures, maybe the way we have CISFs there, I'm not sure. I think it could be similar to that. We have a very separate structured team who protects digital infrastructure for us in India, right? Because that is a separate level of policy making which India may require as we are growing and we are seeing the digital infrastructure is scaling now for us. But while we do this, I'd like to understand one piece of your point of view, basically, one mistake that India should avoid when, they are scaling, or the current ambition which we have. We have startups, we have a good digital infrastructure, we have a good digital ambition, as we say. What's that one mistake which you want to point out?
See, in fact, I feel that we should also, with all this AI, we should look at power very seriously. We are looking at it, but I think, power is sort of crucial for everything, So that power structure, infrastructure has to be strengthened, and the lesser fossil fuels used in generation of power, the better.
I hope I think we reach to that point where we do have solutions for power there, and if we could have small fusion reactors there, which can probably
Whatever that, yeah. I mean, I'm a nuclear physicist by
I
training,
just
training, but that has its own safety hazards.
hazards.
But,
Okay.
But
Okay. I
but
thought
we should
we get some endless power from there.
Yeah, it is definitely less sort of in terms of carbon footprint, it's the best thing.
It's quite best there, but I think it has safety hazards, as you said. So I think moving to the next segment of it, it's more of like a rapid fire. I'll kind of ask you something, and maybe in one word or a sentence, you could probably give your answer there. So I think let's begin with that. My first one is cloud in one word.
Data centers.
Data centers. Okay, yeah. Yes, and that's come out very well there. Yeah. AI in one word.
If you look at language models, AI is a big thing. But look at language models, it's the recycling of natural stupidity. Because whatever data you provide, it will give it back to you.
That's very different and very interesting take. Recycling of natural stupidity. Wow. So the next one, the biggest myth about cloud.
That it's not physical.
Bigger threat, hackers or physical disruptions.
Hackers would be, I would call it a bigger threat because, they would be typically non-state actors. This is like once a state is involved, it is like, the number of attacks will be few, but hackers can be anybody.
Anybody, yes. Yeah. Okay. From that, yes. Bigger blind spot, cyber risk or infrastructure risk?
Cyber risk, as I said, yeah.
One thing India must protect better?
Availability of power.
Availability of power, okay. Yes. One policy gap we should stop ignoring?
One is this data localization. I think we should seriously look at it. Whether we can tweak it in some sense.
Okay, to make sure the businesses can sustain, grow, and plus, yeah. One sentence every citizen should remember about digital life.
Yeah, that it's ephemeral and it depends on power.
Okay, I think everything, all of our discussions has been on power there. I think my next one, bigger dependency today, software or power?
Power, because power depends on software.
So we'd like to understand from you for the next 3 years, as we are scaling AI. India is scaling AI. India is building its digital infrastructure that's equal to data centers, and maybe India is also trying to preserve or work on its power, the energy piece which is there. How do you see businesses or banks should evolve in terms of the way they do transactions or the model in which they are working towards it, so that we have somewhere less carbon footprint, or we use AI very optimizedly, or if there's any policy changes? And it is an open floor to you, basically. What would you do if you had the right set of powers vested with you to make sure India takes a leap to the next level in the next 3 years?
See, I don't see the way we do business, the way we do actually core businesses will change, but the way we deal with our end customers. Okay. Can we sort of give them a easier sort of digital journey to access, because see, customers interaction is not with your business layer and database layer. Business, the end user interacts only with your, the application access layer, right? So can I make it sort of simple, using AI? Can I use, what the promise of agentic AI? Can the fruits of AI reach the end customer, right? Rather than, putting him through, sir, hold your call, So if all things are, power, internet, all are sort of are taken for granted, then I want to unleash the power of AI to them, so that every repetitive task of these organizations is done by AI. And also, the customer interaction is also done mainly through this AI. So that is what I want all these organizations, and especially financial services organizations.
Yeah, I think there we have a lot of repetitive tasks which kind of always takes a lot of chunk of time of either the customer service desk or maybe the frontline staff. Wow, interesting.
So can we have more customer delight through all this?
Okay, so I think the mantra is customer delight.
Yeah,
Customer delight.
This is all, see, whole thing is customer delight, right? I mean, even simulation of disaster thing, put customer at the center and see how you can manage, right?
So then, considering what's happening in the geopolitical arena out there from a risk perspective, do you see we are going back to the same space as we were in COVID, work from home, and then the challenges happening now?
See, now the whole point is COVID was, made, COVID period was sort of made smoother by, all these centralized services, right? So it's going to be a shift.
Again, a shift.
No, because, this is all our centralized, data center cloud services, they are all under threat. COVID was, work from home. Why? Because we had a centralized application.
Correct.
We could log into office applications from home.
And work.
Correct. Now it's not. I mean, you can't take these things for granted anymore. So it's a different kind of risk which we are facing.
So again, I think that's a challenge which we have to solve together. And I think again, it's going to be decentralized. It's going to be sandwiched, or I think the challenges.
So it's a technology policy. All sorts of challenges are there.
So the right intersection of technology, policy, and AI. Let's hope it solves the challenges there. Thank you for being with us today and lovely insights which you said. We enjoyed it, and I hope the audience would definitely enjoy this. And I would love to also kind of connect with you later on a couple of very specific topics there as we spoke today. So thank you once again for this.
Thanks, Rohan. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. If this episode inspired you, do share it with someone who should hear this. Do like, share, and follow our channel for more heroes like this.